welcome to Localized Brand News, a podcast and video interview series produced by Locology and featuring Soshi and a rotating cast of real-life brand marketers to discuss their challenges and best practices. So I'm Mike Boland, Senior Analyst at Locology, and my co-host is Chad Jordan, who's VP of Brands at Soshi. And we also have Joanna Crandell, who is Senior Director of Social and Digital Media at Fantastic Sam. So welcome to you both.
Hey, good to be here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Yes, we'll have fun with this. So we have a lot to get into, including kind of all the things that Joanna is doing and seeing and what we can learn from that. But first, let's find out a little bit more about each of you. So tell me a quick bit about yourself, your role, and the companies you represent, for those unfamiliar. So Chad, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Chad Jordan, VP of Brands at Soshi. Prior to joining Soshi, I was the Director of Digital Marketing, created the digital marketing department at Sport Clips for 5 years, and then joined Soshi because I wanted to work with more brands on especially localized marketing, all things social, reputation management, paid ads, chat bots, online listings, all that kind of stuff, and help especially multi-locations grow that at scale. And so really looking forward to today's conversation. Obviously, I have a lot in common with today's guest, so it's going to be a fun one.
Yes. So Joanna, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, etc.
Why, thank you so much. I have been with the Fantastic Sam's family for 16 years now, if you can believe that. I was Director of Marketing and Social for the Florida region, and then several years ago, I had the great opportunity to come on the national level. And I was super excited and remain excited about this role because I have an opportunity to touch so many franchisees and to help them and their adventure into the social world and the digital marketing world, which is completely my jam. I love it. It's amazing. It changes every moment, and I get to meet amazing people such as yourself. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation and letting you know a little bit what we've been doing on our end during the COVID-19 experience.
Yeah, so a lot to get into there. And also I'll point out the obvious that both of you guys, you, Joanna, presently, and Chad in your past at Sport Clips, are in that kind of hair care vertical. So I'll ask both of you, in all of this kind of lockdown of local businesses, have you guys been cutting your own hair?
No, but I did cut my better half's hair. So.
Nice.
And I don't know if anybody's watching this, they can see, no, I've not touched this thing, but I'm in California and the salons have reopened. So tomorrow I will be getting my first haircut in 3 months. I can't wait.
So anyway, let's jump into it. Chad, you'll be our kind of primary interviewer, drawing on your experience in not only multi-location brand marketing at Soshi, but again, like your experience and perspective in the haircare vertical. So I will toss it over to you, Chad, for the questioning.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Mike, you're going to have a tough job because every time Joanna and I talk, she knows this. We schedule it for, 30 minutes and it goes like 3 hours. So right. We definitely need to keep this podcast abbreviated for what the actual conversation is going to be. And I just wrote this down, Joanna. You said you've been there 16 years. I didn't know that you got hired at 13 years old at Fantastic Sam. So, that's amazing.
Publicize that because, child labor.
Right, exactly. I didn't know that was allowed. But I know you're in Florida, so maybe things are a little different in Florida. But,
everything's in Florida.
the reason I enjoy, like I say, I call Joanna one of my BFFs, and the relationship and conversations we have is because me, from my experience at Sport Clips, her running digital and social at Fantastic Sam's, it really is a small club of folks that aren't just in marketing departments, but in marketing departments of the hair care, the beauty vertical. And so the stuff that I want to talk about today, by the way, I was given a list of just like typical questions. Anybody watching can see the list. That's just, we're not even going to cover the typical stuff because first of all, Joanna's not typical, and her experience and what she's done and her department's done through COVID-19 and now beyond is not typical. For instance, you guys in the salon industry were labeled as non-essential, which I can't believe. I get it from one side, from the, you're around customers and all that kind of stuff, but then from the other side, like as I look in a mirror every day, I'm like, no way, they are essential.
Well, my roots, definitely essential.
Yeah, has certainly taken its toll, both personally on individual clients, but also on the industry. So, a couple things that I don't want this whole conversation, by the way, to be all COVID-19 doom and gloom.
Right.
Where were you? What happened? It's like JFK assassination. Where were you when it happened? I don't want it to be that, but I do want for listeners, and especially marketing departments across the country that have experienced some of the similar things, to be nodding their heads as they go along and listening to some of the experiences that you had. But when COVID-19 hit, really it's what, early to mid-March, and it starts to dawn on March 13th, Friday the 13th.
That's when everything in my world shifted, was March 13th. Yep.
Friday the 13th. We all saw this big dark cloud coming. It hits. What's going on at Fantastic Sam's, and what localized marketing tactics do you immediately start thinking through that you got to deploy across your 900,000 locations across the country as everything's starting to settle in and you're realizing, wow, we are not going to be able to stay open? What are some of the things that you guys immediately put into practice?
Well, the first thing is we really understand the absolute importance of communicating with our guests. And Fantastic Sam's is a full-service hair salon. We do everything from cuts to colors to chemicals, all of those things. So we have a lot of guests who are relying on us and who look forward to their appointments. It's also a walk-in business. We do a lot of walk-ins, and we do some appointments as well. So we had to get the word out. And our guests come from pretty much a 3-mile surrounding from each salon, and that's their neighborhood salon. Our salons are independently owned and operated, so it is a small business, and the stylists who work there, they are living in the community. The owners live in the community, so we had to let people know if hours had changed, what was going on, to really preserve that guest journey and preserve the trust. Because what we didn't want to happen was a guest to come into a salon and it be closed, or it wasn't open at the right time, or they couldn't fit them in. So because it is an independently owned business, we had to give our franchisees the correct tools, methods, and ability to communicate on their local level what they were doing and how they were proceeding for the first several weeks, because it was a little bit touch and go. Not, as a national brand, not every state, not even every city handled it the same way. So we really had to arm and prepare our franchisees to communicate and to be in touch with their guests right from the get-go, so the guests knew what their experience was going to be and knew what was happening, so that we could preserve that integrity with our guests.
So what were your big 2 to 3? Google My Business, updating hours and your information there, right?
Right.
What are some of the big ones that you tackled right away?
So for Fantastic Sam's, each salon has a page on our national webpage. And as you know, web pages are super important for search engines such as the Google, as I always call it. And as you know, we also have nested Facebook pages, for each and every one of our salons. So we wanted to make sure that across those 3 platforms that all of the hours and all of the information was the same, so that it was consistent whether a guest was searching for us or whether they were used to going to the web page or they were, followed them on Facebook. Those were our 3 biggest tops. So we had to make sure that our franchisees could remember how to get into their pages. That was a tricky thing because Fantastic Sam's has been around for 47 years. So this is a brand with longevity, and we have owners who've been in the system for 20 plus years and not necessarily as comfortable with technology. I don't know if that's been your experience in your previous life in the hair industry, but a lot of our owners are very good at what they do, but they are terrified of technology, and they've kind of steered clear, and now they had to face the dragon. And so we wanted to make sure they felt comfortable, that they understood the bare essentials, that they understood how important this was. I think getting through the importance of unilateral information was key. And so we had to change our tactics and communication with our franchisees so that they would be better at communicating with their teams and their guests.
So what did you change? How did you communicate? What differences did COVID-19 force you guys to embrace?
Well, we as a company, we started what we called the support forum. It was every other day. It was Mondays, still going on, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, with lists of all of the government things that were happening, list of all the marketing things. And so that was constantly changing every single week. We were giving them new and more information. I started doing weekly webinars on I started off very simple. It was like, what do we do now? And it was a 4-part series, kind of starting at the beginning and holding their hands and saying, okay, here's what you do. You need to remember how to get on your pages. You need to make sure your hours are updated. You need to use these posts, because we didn't want them to try to create their own posts. So we created a slew of digital assets that were customizable by the franchisee as well, so that we had brand integrity, which was really important. So when they saw it in one place, it would be the same in the others. And this was really important, especially in Instagram. I didn't mention that as one of our big pushes because it's a little bit more nebulous, but being in the beauty industry, as I'm sure you know, stylists love Instagram. I love Instagram. Like, if you don't love Instagram, like, I don't know what to do with you. Instagram is great. And even on Facebook. So we really needed to give them the tools that were super, super easy. That was the key, is we wanted to give them tools like templates or just pre-packaged posts that they could just immediately, we call them packages. We have a third-party provider that helps with scheduling a lot of our social media. So they had the right hashtags, they had the right platforms, they had the right shapes, sizes, look, feel. All they had to do was post it on their pages. Like, that's just, I said, if you can type and you can click, you can do this, to kind of take the edge off. Otherwise, I think a lot of them wouldn't have had the courage or the drive to put out that necessary communication. If we hadn't pre-packaged it for them, handed it to them, and then if they wanted to customize it, they could. Otherwise, it was plug and play.
I think that's been one of the lessons really learned through the COVID-19 crisis. You mentioned franchisees weren't always either embracing technology or, adept at it. And I don't think, and my background being in the hair and beauty industry as well, totally agree with what you said there. But I don't even know that that's limited to just our verticals. I really feel like in franchising, someone gets into franchising and owns all these locations. They're not looking to do the nuanced daily localized digital marketing efforts. That's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about payroll. They're thinking about their lease. They're thinking about, people coming in through the doors. So I think one of the takeaways from COVID-19 is a lot more locations, especially in franchising space, are going to be now educated and accustomed to doing some of this localized marketing effort. And you and your team, now I've attended the webinars weekly. I still don't know how you guys pulled it off. It's really like I'd say a 2-man team, but it's a 2-woman team. Shout out to Jenna, right?
Yeah, Jenna.
You guys have done what you have put together on a weekly basis far exceeds what I think anyone's expectations, even in Fantastic Sam's, could have been. You gave them way more information than what I don't know what was expected, and it feels like coming out of this, and which we're going to talk about here in a minute, they're going to be your franchisees are going to be so much more better positioned to really hit the ground running and to embrace a comeback because of your efforts. So I just wanted to point out to anybody that may be viewing this, or anybody in the audience that's in a franchise marketing department especially, the education you give your franchisees right now and through this over the next couple months is going to pay dividends down the road. We don't know when another pandemic or when, a hurricane may hit a certain region, right? There's all sorts of disasters that could happen where you have to adjust on the fly. And what your team has done has been tremendous. So
well, the thing about that as I looked at it, when I was looking at overall what was needed to be done, because obviously we know that we had to close salons down. Then we know we had to help them communicate during this period, because it is a very tough period. When you have stylists working, they are some of the first people hit by employment opportunities lost. They survive heavily on their tips. So you really needed to make sure that the franchisee not only paid attention to their guests, but used this time to stay in contact with their stylists as well. Because, that was part one, is getting everything closed. Part two is keep those lines of communication even more so open so people understand and feel that connection. As in the hair industry, it's all about building relationships. Well, heck, any business is about building relationships. And so we had to train our stylists and had to train our franchisees a new way of building those relationships. So that's, when it comes to those webinars, I think something that's really important is to break it down into small, bite-sized chunks. Because to your point, Chad, it's all small businesses, I think, struggle overall with social media as a general rule. I talk to my favorite restaurateurs and I'm like, you might want to fix your webpage.
I know.
I can't help myself.
That's the problem that you and I have, and anybody that's probably in localized digital marketing. It's like we see all the things that people could be doing. We're like, it's so simple. If you would just fix this on Facebook or put this message out on Instagram.
Exactly. Or, you should really have your phone, like the small details that we take for granted because we're just like, of course people should be doing it. What I learned in this period was how many of our franchisees didn't have that background. And so they didn't even know where to start. So we had to give them building blocks. That's why we did a 4-part series, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, little building blocks where they can build on each different week's knowledge. And then saying the same thing. I was taught a long time ago that you should, when you're trying to get people to understand something, you say it 4 times, but in 4 completely different ways. So, and maybe then it starts to sink in. So I really focused on that and making sure I was saying, how important communication was to your guests and to your stylist, and giving them different tips and tricks every single webinar that were new, but building on the same principles so that when they come out, they are going to be far, far more adept at doing the necessary things to be successful. Because even now, as we have a lot of our salons are coming back online, a lot of our salons are about to in the next week, and communication again becomes a primary issue. And now I'm super excited to say that I know they're actually paying attention to their social media. This last 8-week period has forced them to pivot and also given them the time. That's another huge aspect. This weird, awful situation gave our franchisees and managers more time to absorb information, to attend the webinars, to practice things at home. So to have them leverage the time and have them kind of have homework to do between each webinar really supported their newfound talents as they're coming out. But breaking it down to small boxes and really constantly communicating with that franchisee, giving them that support so they can support their salon, so that salon can come back into their neighborhood.
You just mentioned it, so that's the lane I want us to run in right now. A lot of these salons are, this is early June. A lot of salons are coming back online, being reopened. What kind of tactics, what strategies at a local level are you asking them to deploy? Whether it's social media, whether it's responding to reviews, like what are the things, like you're saying, hey, I know you're reopening. I know clients are coming in, but you got to keep doing these things. What are you guys focusing on?
Well, mentioning reviews, reputation management now is more important than ever before. Gosh, now more than ever. If I hear that phrase one more time, I'm going to book my ass out. But truly, what we have seen as salons are starting to come out is fatigue by our guests. They are super anxious to get into the salons, but there's a new norm. So what I'm discovering is if franchisees do not manage the expectations of their guests, that's when they run into trouble. That's when they get the negative review.
Right.
And as I have the great fortune of getting every comment from all of our salons, from Facebook, from our website,
Wow.
and from Google. So I really know what's being said. And overwhelmingly, like, they're positive things. But in climate, we're suddenly seeing people struggle with the appointment issue and oh, were they supposed to wear masks, so they weren't supposed to wear a mask, and they took too long. And I feel like people are quicker to judge as a guest, as a consumer, which is crazy to me. They have no patience. That what a service that might have taken 30 minutes might take 45 because of cleaning. However, if you set that guest's expectations before they even come into the salon,
that's good. Yeah.
Not going to be an issue.
Right.
So all of it comes back down to communicating on that local level to your local guests. That's the people that matter the most.
For me, that's so important what you just said there, because I'm a consumer, right? Obviously not at a hair salon in the last 3 months, but places like restaurants for takeaway. And even though there's a lot of grace that we're giving to these industries that have stayed open and have stayed in business throughout this pandemic, there is that level of expectation that you're talking about. And for me, there's less patience for places that have not adjusted well, right? So as I reemerge into society and all these businesses reopen, there is going to be, yes, some level of angst that we consumers have, but also some expectation that, hey, during the last 3 months, last 4 months, whatever, did you take some lessons to heart as a business? And are you making things easier on us as a consumer as we come back? If you are, just let us know. For instance, use a restaurant experience. Like when I call to place a takeaway order or curbside pickup, I now expect the restaurant to tell me what to do. When I get there, I need to stay in my car. They'll come out with the receipt. They'll bring the food separately. Like, just, do I need to wear a mask? Like, I need to know those sorts of things. And once you tell me that, I'm golden, because I know you have a checklist and you're gonna do all those things. And so I imagine that's part of your messaging right now to your salons is set the expectation. It seems that's a theme that you've developed. Set the expectation and then live up to it, and then you've got nothing to worry about.
Exactly. And then also, not every situation is going to, even if you have managed a guest expectation, things can still go wrong. And it's critical, as you both know, to respond to reviews and comments immediately.
Right.
No wasting of the time, and to be specific and to be detailed and to get that conversation offline so that you can get that situation corrected. So these are things I've been talking about to our franchisees for 2 years. Suddenly now they're taking them to heart because they have to. They have had to learn about social media and appreciate it, even though they might hate it. They still understand now its power, and it is one of the only ways that they can get the word out that they're open for business. Because just because an area has come back up and the salons are supposed to be open or allowed to open, we know a lot of them haven't. It's scary for a stylist to come back in and work in a salon. There's a lot of trepidation. It's not just on the guest side; it's on the stylist side too. Are they older? Do they have a condition? So there are a lot of little slips and falls that we have to pay attention to and prepare both our owners and our guests to understand. And that's why we've created another whole slew of content. And what I found, I'm just going to skip around for a second, is I've had to shift content messaging almost every single week because things pivot so quickly. So before we were like, we're open, we can't wait to see you. And then this week it's like, and we appreciate your patience. And because I was like, oh, I got all this content done. I'm done. Oh no, here it goes again. Because every week everything changes. And so for us as a large corporation to be nimble gives us the opportunity to support our franchisees better, which in case gives them an opportunity to get back into their local markets and running their salons and being that neighborhood hair salon for their people. So the shift is important, and then really being responsive and paying attention and listening. I think a lot of owners, business owners, do a lot of talking when they're doing social media, and now they're having to do more listening, which is really important, as we know, so that they can be more responsive and hear the concerns so they can better address them, which is why we've created these pre-packaged posts that are yet editable if an owner would like to do so. We're using Canva templates to do that. I don't know if you're familiar with Canva, but with the myriad of software that's out there, and even if you have, most people have Adobe Reader, like they don't have the opportunity to take an editable PDF and turn it into something that's usable for social media. So by using Canva, that has helped us immensely by giving them these templates. They can do it on any platform. Really, it's if you can click and you can type, you can edit a Canva template and save it. And that's how simple we have to make it for our franchisees, because otherwise it's too daunting. Even after all of this, making it tangible and easy for them, that has helped us tremendously.
So here's my last question, and I'm actually going to give you what my answer would be if I was still at Sport Clips, okay? Because the question is, what lesson have you learned through all of this that you hope gets embraced throughout? And for me, if I was still at Sport Clips, especially seeing what you have done on the weekly, the webinars and the 4-part series and all that kind of stuff, I would be putting together some small certification course that annually the franchisees needed to participate in, that ran through the basics of social, digital, localized marketing, and the whys, the what's in it for me, why they have to do it. And then I'd have some incentive tied to it, like if they completed the course, that they win $1 million, or I don't know, something like that. So maybe they'd get access to my direct cell phone number with any localized marketing questions they have. They could call me night or day if they complete the certification course. Maybe that'd be the incentive. But that's the lesson I would have learned during this time. What about you? You're actually sitting in the chair of a marketing department still and running all the social and digital stuff. What's the lesson that you hope gets embraced beyond all this?
Well, I'd like to steal your lesson.
Go for it. Let's do it. I'll help you.
So I'll help the CAD certification course and give you that full kudos, because I think that's a genius idea. The number one lesson. That's tough. I had it, but then I got stuck on your whole certification course, and that was just blew me out of the water. I love that idea.
Well, you can steal it. That's fine.
I think out of all of this, I think the recognition and appreciation for the fact that corporate can't do this for them. They have to do it themselves, which goes back to your certification, because we could put out all the posts and all the land, but there's no way we at a corporate office could possibly have the messaging that is needed and was needed and will be needed. There's no way we can do that, because it is each individual local salon in their local markets. And that's why your certification course is so important. And that's why these last 8 weeks have been critical, is to give them that tools and the necessary templates and support and understanding and all of those pieces, because we can't do it. Even if we wanted to, even if we had the 17 people full-time devoted to this, we can't do it. We're not in the salons. Nobody cares what corporate says. I hate to say that. Nobody cares.
So, Mike, I want to turn it back over to you. like I said, we could do this longer.
So that's actually all the time we have. I want to thank you, Chad and Joanna, for spending time with us.
Well,
it was our pleasure.
Yes.
I love it. You know, I can talk.
Yeah, and like Chad said, Joanna, we got to have you back. So thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes and other output from Locology, including thought leadership, events, written narratives, and multimedia like this. So this has been Localized Brand News. I'm Mike Boland. Thanks for watching.